So there you go. It's an example of a combination of all of these species counterpoints put together. So if you look at 165, there's a little bit of a history of all of these. So Johann Joseph Fuchs and his history, and he's kind of the counterpoint dude. So even though counterpoint was happening prior to the 16th century, or no, sorry, the 17th century. The 17th century is when Fuchs in 1660 really started writing about it seriously and analyzing it, put together a book sort of describing what was going on for other composers to use. So, a little bit, counterpoint was developed before we had our traditional Western major-minor melodies and system of scales. So we're still in the modal system. So there is a little bit of review on modes, which you might want to look at. And just remember, there's kind of a trick to doing modes. So if we add this, fifth species, anything goes, all right? So it could be anything you want, all right? So it's the combo meal of counterpoint. But with modal scales, just remember, we have 6 possibilities right now. They are Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Ionian. If you look in your book, they'll give you these scales all laid out. This will help you do 8.1 and 8.2. They show you where all of the half steps are, so you've got to determine where those half steps fall. And then just remember, on the piano, there's a really good shortcut. So in Dorian mode, I'll show you the piano briefly. Dorian mode is going to start on D. It's going to move up to D using all the white keys. So here's Dorian. And then Phrygian, the next one, it's just going to start on E. So think D for Dorian, that's the first one. That's the final note. In Phrygian, it starts on E, and it's going to be all white keys. So here's Phrygian. Now our next scale is Lydian. That's just going to go up one more step to F. And it's going to go from F to F using all white keys. Sorry. All right. Mixolydian. Move it up one more step to G. All right. Aeolian, which is our natural minor, right? Okay, and then I don't remember what the one that starts on B is, but don't worry about it. It's not going to affect you. There is one definitely, but I don't think it's used in the church modes. And then finally C. Is our current major scale. That's Ionian. But if you think about D for Dorian and then work your way up from there, it's a pretty good deal. So yeah, and just look at page 166 to see where all the half steps are. Now these, of course, can be transposed just like your average major scale. So it's just going to change where the half steps are. So, I mean, well, the half steps will stay in the same space. So, example, in Dorian mode, the half step is between the second and third note and the sixth and seventh note, right? So, half step, sixth and seventh note, right? So if we wanted to transpose Dorian mode to another start key, you just have to take that template, just like with a major or minor scale, and move it right over. So if we wanted it on E, for example, it would sound like this. Whole step, half step. Just like that. So you will see that in 8.1 and 8.2. They'll be transposed. It's pretty crystal clear. So that should give you no problem, hopefully. You can identify those. If you can't figure that one out, I have taught you guys nothing. I failed as a teacher. But anyway, so let's talk about, I'm going to skip ahead with beginning counterpoint. So this is sort of the basics of writing a good melody and writing a good, so this is mostly for writing a good cantus firmus, but also applies to the actual counterpoint that you're working on. So there are some rules. So these are the rules if you're writing out the cantus firmus, which luckily for you guys, you don't actually have to do, but it's good to know, and it also applies to the rules of the melody line of the counterpoint. Although more importantly is just how the rules around first species counterpoint are. But, so first of all, melodies in species counterpoint, both the cantus firmus and the contrapuntal melody, consist primarily of conjunct motion with an occasional leap. What they mean by that is stepwise motion. So motion moving in, seconds, or an occasional leap, which is, a third or more. For example, the cantus firmus presented in 8.10 contains 7 steps and only 3 leaps. The best general contour is a rise to a single climax tone followed by a descent. So if you look in 8.10, which I'm not going to take the time to write this on the board, you'll see we've got generally there's a leap here of a third, then it's moving in stepwise motion, pops up for another leap, stepwise leap, and then stepwise motion all the way down. Here's your climax point, either a high climax point or a low climax point, and you're starting on tonic, ending on tonic. So that's what they mean when they talk about a good melody. So, rules for melody. And I'm going to write this in a Word file for you guys that you can download from the website. And you'll be able to use all these rules as sort of your Bible for writing out your counterpoint assignments. And I'm going to actually leave it open so that if you want to add anything to it that you find as far as rules go or anything that helps you, you can add it right to the paper, and if you have really good suggestions, upload it back to the class so other people can see it. Or we can open up a discussion forum for it too, that could work. So here's the melody. So, stepwise motion. Occasional leaps. All right, just sort of start adding these to your collection of notes. And then single climax note. All right? So, usually no more than, you don't want to have 2 successive leaps. So, no multiple leaps in a row, if you can help it. Occasionally when it's permissible. No multiple leaps in a row. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So you want to avoid 2 leaps in a row, but okay if outlining a triad. But only occasionally. Hopefully these are readable, sort of legible maybe, I'm hoping. So yeah, you want to avoid 2 leaps in a row, but if it's outlining a triad, it's permissible occasionally. You can't do a bunch of them. You don't want that to be your whole melody, but it's permissible. Now the one thing that you cannot do is your melody cannot move in tritones, meaning augmented fourths or diminished fifths, or major or minor sevenths. So no tritones. No sevenths. And this is because they were originally writing these pieces for people to sing, right? And not everybody in, their little town, wherever they were composing music, was a very good singer. So they had to make it easy and accessible for people to actually be able to sing. And that's all it is. So just think, it's hard to sing tritones. It's hard to sing major, minor sevenths. You guys have experienced that in your training class. So yeah, avoid those. Now, if you are stuck with a tritone in your piece, you can avoid it by adding a B flat. All right? So avoid tritones. By, which in the modes that we're in, since it's all white keys and no black keys, the one tritone that you're going to actually run into is the B to F, right? So B natural to F is a tritone. If you lower it down to a B flat, suddenly it turns into a perfect fourth or a perfect fifth. So if you're stuck with a tritone, stick in a flat. Stick in that B flat, basically. Avoid, so no repeated figures or motives. No sequences. You want to avoid sequences. They're not part of the style at this point in time. So no sequences. Gets repetitive. And you also want to avoid melodies that outline a tritone. So just avoid it. So if there's a tritone hidden within a sequence, you want to avoid it if you can. Throw in a B flat. Let's see. So as far as range goes, you want them to not be more than an octave, all right? So try to avoid, so melody lines should stay within an octave. Range, definitely not more than a tenth. Range within 1 octave. Okay? And those are the rules for writing good melodies, all right?